This is not about conspiracies. We are here just to educate you on how you, as an average backyard chicken keeper, can protect your flock. So we have graciously been here with Suburban Farmer, Phil, and Marissa of Kings, Cocks, and the Mother Cluckers. So we are grateful that and yes, we have lots of goodies in here. So we are grateful that y'all have agreed to come on and just to kind of go over what H5N1 is, what we can do to protect our flocks. And at the end is where we're going to get some questions answered. So we're going to let them kind of go over the topics. And then at the end, we can ask specific questions now we're having a very big influx. Specific questions that you may, have that pertains to your particular situation. But we do have a few rules, so we're not going to be jerk faces at any point. We're not going to be disrespectful to our guests. And if it comes to that, I will boot you out. But we're all adults here, and I know that's not going to happen. So we'd like to introduce Phil of Suburban Farmer, and then we have Marissa King of Kings, Cocks, and the Mother Cluckers. So hey guys. Phil, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure, I can. I can kind of introduce myself. I am a backyard gardener and chicken keeper, quail keeper. I've been doing this for about 7 years or so that's my background. We talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm just learning as I go. There's still stuff that I don't know. And the point of this Zoom meeting, like we just said, is we're trying to give information that we've learned, things that we know, so that we can spread this to the new flock keepers or even to older flock keepers that don't know or don't understand what needs to happen, because this isn't something that's happened here recently and we need to just cover this.
Marissa, can you introduce yourself, hon?
Hi, I'm Marissa from Kings, Cocks, and the Mother Cluckers. I'm a mom. I'm a veteran. I've been doing this since I was little. Got serious in it 2011, and just kind of went from there. Yeah, I write for Chickens Magazine. I blog for Mother Earth News. About to start blogging for Hobby Farms, and yeah, that's about it.
Okay, Phil, would you like to start off with what H5N1 is, and we'll kind of go from there?
Yeah, so H5N1, guys, is a strain of avian flu. It's something that we normally don't have spreading around here in the United States. So this is this version of it is a regional version that is a Eurasian strain. And so there's some things that we need to know and learn about what this H5N1 does. And so that's another reason for this podcast, is so that we can discuss exactly what it is. So since it is not native here, our birds are not accustomed to it. And it's also the type of strain that it is. It is a high pathogen avian influenza. So you're going to hear us talk a little bit about low pathogen avian influenzas and then the high pathogen avian influenza. So we typically have those low pathogen avian influenzas in the US spread by wild birds. Our birds get a little bit sick, and then we give them some medication and they get better and we go about our day, right? You got the next question?
Yeah.
Or you want to chime in, Marissa?
Okay, so
yeah. So a lot of stuff. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna reiterate that what Phil had said. He kind of gave an overview of what it is, but now we need to know, like, how is this going to affect us? Like, how is it going to spread?
So with LPAI versus HPAI, LPAI really isn't a concern. Your mortality rate, it's not very high. you run like a 20% mortality rate with LPAI. And LPAI basically stands for low pathogenic avian influenza. What we're seeing with this, particularly H5N1, it's an HPAI strain. It is high pathogenic avian influenza. So what happens with these domesticated flocks we have, they do not have the genetics, they do not have the hardiness to fight this virus off. Statistically, 75% of your flock, if they contract this, they will die. 75 up to 100%. And that's what makes this so scary to flock owners. But it's not a reason to panic. If we take the proper precautions, it's not anything to really panic over. It's not really anything you've really got to worry about. Because as long as you keep the wild birds away, and you and your neighbors consecutively lock down, you'll be just fine. Everybody will be just fine.
But going back to what Phil, when we gave an overview of what, H5N1 is. Okay, so, but how are they picking up these birds that are affected? How do they know that they are affected? So let's kind of give everybody an idea of how, they didn't just pick it out of the air. So how did that happen?
So how are they testing how do they find
How are they finding the ones that are testing positive?
So this goes to a plus for the hunting community, because this was originally found in South Carolina because of the hunters. Hunters want to make sure that, everything is kosher, is good, is healthy. So they set up testing, stations, things like that. States do, the Department of Agriculture's, to where hunters can take their birds in, or if they're just doing a random sample, sometimes they'll go to an area and they'll say, hey, if you killed a bird, come here and we'll test that. And so what had happened originally is some hunters in South Carolina, they shot a duck, it was a duck or was it a widgeon? I can't remember, one of the two. It was something, they shot a bird, they brought it in, it was tested, and then found that it did have the H5N1 strain. And so with those wild birds, just as a key bird, we were talking about HPAI, with your backyard flocks and the genetics and things like that, they get it, boom, instantly, the signs and symptoms are there, it starts spreading amongst your flock. With those wild birds, they can be asymptomatic for a little bit. It's still going to end up affecting them, but they can be, again, carriers. They can't, because they move, from body of water to body of water to body of water. And so they come in contact with a lot of birds. And so it can be spread through them, because it may take a week or a week and a half before it really starts affecting them, and then they end up dying, right? So that's how that ends up jumping and spreading and moving, is because these wild birds have a little bit better genetics and ability to manage this virus than the stuff that we've bred and that we keep in our backyard. Okay, so how are the birds moving? Can we kind of discuss that migratory pathways, how certain areas are seeing those pop up right now, and maybe those out in the West aren't being affected by it right now? You want to take that one, Marissa?
So your flight patterns. So we have 4 flight patterns in the United States, but the ones that we are only specifically seeing this in are your Atlantic and your Mississippi. So that is the east side of the United States. Now, something that's been brought up, like Canada is going through H5N1 right now, and it was found in Nova Scotia, I believe. So those birds, what they do, I think we all see Canadian geese over or fly through our area if you were in the South somewhere. Like, they are constantly going back and forth, but it's not just geese. Hummingbirds even migrate. When it gets cold, they migrate south. When it gets warm, they migrate back north to their original nesting grounds. So, hey. So, while we're seeing this movement, these birds are going to make stops along the way. I know Canadian geese are really famous for it. They stop at fountains, they stop at big fields, and sometimes they can desecrate crop fields just from stopping and eating. But they're stopping. If they have H5N1 along these paths that they're stopping, we have non-migratory birds in those paths, picking it up and spreading it around the area. So you'll start seeing where these migratory birds travel when migration season comes on. Well, like New York right now, New York doesn't really have any wild birds right now because they're all south where it's warm. So New York, you're really going to see a big influx of cases once these birds come back home, because they're going to be traveling through Kentucky, they're going to be traveling through Georgia, they're going to be traveling through all of these South states, Indiana. And that is how we're going to see this big influx happen. They're going to make a stop, they're going to poop, they're going to deposit the virus into shared bodies of water. Other birds are going to come in, pick that virus up, and they're going to spread it locally in a big cluster type situation.
And so, and to add to that, there's been studies where they've studied the H5N1 and its viability in, you know, brackish water and fresh water, salt water, temperature differences. And so in fresh water and, you know, light salinity brackish water, less than 10%, H5N1 can last up to 90 days in that water. So if you've got a wild bird that flies in, what do wild ducks do? They poop as soon as they hit the water. And all ducks do. If you've ever had ducks, they find water, they poop in it. That's what they do. So there's that concern as if it spreads and it gets there, it can be there for a while until it heats up. It doesn't like the hot water. So once the temperature gets up to a certain point, it'll kill it off in those bodies of water. But in that 70-degree range, it can stay with a low salinity fresh water system. It can stay live and virulent in those bodies of water for up to 90 days.
Okay. Is there anything you want to add to that, Marissa? Or no?
No, just, I mean, we've got to keep the wild birds away. I mean, that's how this stuff spreads. If people would just take the precautions to keep the wild birds from getting to their flocks, we probably won't see any cases in the backyard flocks. We'll be seeing more in commercial flocks, but also it depends on the type of barn that those commercial industrialists are using.
Okay, so we can move on to kind of like, okay, so what are we're going to get to biosecurity. I just kind of want to go over the general of giving an idea what it is, and now how, you know, why is it? Why are we seeing it pop up the way we are? So that way people can understand that, you know, the migratory, that's where the birds are just naturally going. So what are some of the symptoms that we would see in our backyard? What would we see if one of our if our flock was infected or we thought was infected?
So back in 2015, we had symptoms, but again, back in 2015, we had a novel strain. So it was native to North America. It was basically an LPAI strain that modified and took off within the United States. And a lot of us, if we had chickens back then, we saw how bad it was. It was heartbreaking what was happening. But with this one, this is a Eurasian strain. So with your Eurasian strain, we're having some really, I want to say it's neat, but in the same sense, it's not neat, it's scary. But those original symptoms that we had don't really apply to the Eurasian strain. The symptoms that we're getting now is a drop in water consumption. Your birds aren't making noise, which is totally different from what we had with that novel. With the novel, we had misshapen eggs, we had purple combs, we had hypoxia in birds. We had them, you know, just being kind of just inactive. But this one, they're not making any noise and they're not drinking any water. And those are the two first symptoms coming out of these commercial flocks. And then pretty much they're dropping over dead. Within 12 to 18 hours, they're dropping and passing away.
So if you suspect that your flock does have the strain, what contacts would you have them to make?
So you would want to contact the USDA. They have a number set up. So that number is 1-866-536-7593. I can type that in the chat as well. they have, veterinarians there that are available to take the call and do what needs to be done. There's also your local state veterinarian, and you can find that on your state Department of Agriculture as well. If you see those signs, you see, you go outside and you see several of them. Get that. Christine, the answer is if it's positive, they'll do more than take it.
Okay, that was my next question. We want to know the facts. We don't want to panic people, but can you kind of go over if you do have a positive, or let's say there's a hot spot, let's say someone within your area tested positive, and where once you speak, where are we getting these rules from? Like, who is dictating these types of rules, that the 6 mile rule? Can y'all explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I actually want to touch on who to call to. Okay. To be preventative, people can actually call their state NPIP tester. It's like $40 to come out and get tested, and they can come out and test your flock. Like, my tester is coming out in 2 weeks to test, and after that, I'm going to have her regularly come out every 3 to 4 weeks to test my birds. Now, with the 6 mile, 10 kilometer rule, USDA has come up with that. And a lot of these rules we're seeing, they are new rules. So like with Newcastle, a lot of people are comparing this to Newcastle. And while it's the same, it's not the same. It's 2 different viruses, 2 different regulatory rules to go by. So a lot of these rules we're seeing, they didn't come up until 2015. And by then, they didn't do what they needed to do. They were culling, I think, 1 to 3 miles during that, and they found out that that was not enough culling or depopulating for them to do. So they spread that little bubble out farther to the 6 mile radius we're seeing today, which it doesn't float on the wind. It doesn't travel by air. Like, the particles have to have something to cling to. It's not like Newcastle where it can get on a dust particle and it floats away in the wind and then just spreads all over the place. So that's where that 6 mile bubble comes from. They want to be very proactive. The 3 mile bubble wasn't enough back in 2015, so they just expanded it to 6 miles to be safe.
And we also, just to add, so with the difference between Newcastle and H5N1 or an HPAI, there are different levels of biosecurity levels that the USDA has. And so, you got your level 1s, which is just your normal LPAIs, and there's not much protocols, just basically how to handle things. Level 2, which is what Newcastle is. Newcastle was considered a level 2 biohazard. And so they had certain things that they had to do with those birds when they culled them. They had to bleach them for, like, in a 10% solution for at least 90 minutes, or they had to pressure steam them for a certain amount of time in order to inoculate them and get them to where they can then do whatever. With H5N1, it is a level 3. It is another step up on what they've got to do and require to bag the birds, burn the birds, and do all. I mean, it's a completely different level. And so trying to compare those two, they're not the same. And so if your chickens show signs, we all love our birds, but we need to be responsible bird keepers, right? So you still need to call, right? It's just like one of our kids, if our kids get sick or something like that, we need to make sure we call a doctor, get them where they got to go. That's being a responsible owner, right? We need to call the vet, get them to come test it. If it's tested positive, then it is what it is. We've got to go through those processes because it's somebody else's flock, right? It's your neighbor's flock. It's somebody else's pets, right? We've got to think about not just about us. And I know it's hard, right? I love my chickens. My chickens have names, right? All of our chickens got names, right? They're part of our family, and so you got to make sure, again, that we are following through and doing what needs to be done, because once they come in and if they get a positive test, they will call your flock, okay? Even the ones that aren't showing symptoms, they're going to call your flock because it has to be stopped. We can't have it spreading someplace else, right? And then there will be determination. Do you have biosecurity in place, or what's going on? Can wild birds access it, or is it being spread to somebody else? Can somebody else's neighbors' chickens come over? Are they, free ranging them and they come and chill in your coop for a while, right? And then spread it back to their flock. So then they will determine, and that's upon each state and their rules. And, the USDA has their governance, just like the CDC has its rules in place, but the states, again, have their own authority, and they do what they're going to do based on what they decide. And so then that will go in, that 6 mile radius or 10 kilometer thing, that will start coming into play. They may start with testing just a few flocks to see, hey, has this spread? Or your state may come in and say, we ain't playing. I'm sure if it spreads to California, California's going to say, we ain't playing.
Yep.
Because they've already gone through this and they had to pay the bill, right? So this is not cheap. The government is not wanting to deal with this because that is a lot of money that they are going to pay out. Lots of money to control these. Right? So this is not something that, I didn't bring my aluminum foil hat to put on. This is not something that the government is wildly spreading to kill all the backyard chickens, right?
Right.
This is expensive. This is no joke, for them to have to deal with cleaning this mess up.
So currently we're just going by what is found right now. So they're not like diligently looking for backyard flocks. They're not checking backyard flocks at this point. They're just whoever tests positive, and that responsible person, made the call to let them know, if their chickens were sick or they were dying. And that's when the testing came into play. Is that correct?
Correct. And so they're testing wild birds. They have, one of the guys I work with, I'm a teacher. He actually got called up. He's a National Guard member. He got called up last week, and they're going out testing wild birds. That's what they are doing in the state of Texas right now. So they're already starting here, and it's not even in our flyway. We're Central Flyway, but they're on this because we dealt with an HPAI in Texas back, I think what was 2004 in a Tyson farm, and it was a mess. And Texas is not wanting to play around. So they're wanting to go check and see, okay, what do we have? Because it's not hunting season right now for us. And so they don't have the hunters going out there and bringing stuff in to test them. So they're having to go out and do it themselves. And so, Emily, the 6 mile radius thing, again, it's going to depend on your state and what's going on in the situation. If it's found in a backyard flock and it's good, solid biosecurity, and it's determined that maybe it was carried in by the person walking in to feed or gather eggs or whatever else, and there was no way for any other birds to get in there, then maybe they won't. But then again, maybe they will. So, it's just going to be depending upon the state and what the state decides, because they have full authority to do what they need to do. It is a biosecurity issue. It is a biohazard, right? So it is something that they have authority to handle.
So what you're saying, Phil, is that I guess when she says, she wants to know exactly, are they going to do this or that? And we all do, of course, but I think we're wanting specific, like something to read. Is there rules that the USDA has on their website that we can read that states, yes, if this happens, we're coming to test your flock? Or you understand what I'm saying? Like, I know a lot of people would feel more comfortable if they had stuff they could visually read and not rules that they're just making up. Like, will we come in? We don't know. Maybe not.
So the USDA has a guidebook for commercial poultry owners. They have Defend the Flock for backyard chicken keepers, but that commercial poultry guide is going to be your best friend. It is in a PDF online. You can download it, and I apologize for my kids in here, but you can download it, read through that, and then you just need to take what is in that guide and apply it to your farm and to your flocks.
So now,
and it also depends, again, like I said, on the state. Like, I've reached out to the state of Texas. I emailed my contacts that I have there. And so I really haven't gotten a straight answer because I don't even think the states know. I think it's going to be decision based on the situation, right? They're not wanting to do one size fits all, right? They need to look at the situation and see, you know, what's going on, and then figure out what they need to do based on, you know, the scenario there. Is a flock that's got it wide open, free ranging, they don't care about anybody else around them, and other flocks are coming in and mingling, you know, is it, you know, or are these lockdown birds that are in there? I mean, it's going to depend on what that situation is how the state is going to respond.
Okay, thank you.
And if you're like established, and some states may be lenient in it, like I know New York, if you're in New York and you're already established with an NPIP tester who comes out and tests you for avian influenza, you can actually test out if that hits around you. And my state's the same way. We can test out if we are put in one of those hot zones.
Okay. Sorry, I was trying to make sure. Okay. Let's talk about what we can do now that we've heard all of this very scary stuff. It's not a panic, but it's definitely scary. I couldn't imagine losing my flock of heifers, and I know y'all couldn't either. So let's begin by giving useful tips that people can implement today that is doable, not, you know, like we say, redneckering is the way what we are doing this. So I can give you an idea what I've been doing, but first of all, I just kind of want y'all to go over what biosecurity is and why they hear that word all the time, biosecurity.
So based on the USDA, they break biosecurity down into two parts, and you can read this on the Defend Your Flock, like Marissa was talking about. You can Google USDA space biosecurity or space defend the flock. And they have tons and tons of information for backyard flock owners. So they break biosecurity into two things: structural biosecurity and operational biosecurity. So structural biosecurity is talking about the actual structure, the coop, the pens, the poultry houses, family farms, commercial farms, other facilities, the measures that you use to contain your birds in that area, keeping out the wild birds, like putting a roof over your runs, you know, making sure that mice can't get in, that rats can't get in, because they can be carriers, guys. They go and they get into poop or food or water or whatever else, someplace else in you know, a neighbor's flock that may have it, and they scurry over to yours because it's an all-day buffet, right? They can come eat the food in your flock, and they bring it over, right? Then they have the operational biosecurity, which is talking about us as the chicken keepers. What do we need to do? What protections do we do when we go into our birds? Do we pick them up? Do we love on them? Do we wash ourselves? Do we take a shower beforehand? Do we change our clothes? Do we change our shoes? Do we wash our shoes? Things like that, right? So we need to discuss those two types. So Marissa, you want to chime in on one of them?
Okay, so like I'm going to start off with structural, because right now that's going to be your biggest help, because we're not in our coops all the time. We're not going in and out consistently, maybe once or twice a day, but we're not doing hourly checks like these commercial farms are doing. So your structural coops, guys, this can be as simple. Oh, my finger's bleeding. This can be as simple as throwing up chicken wire on top of dog paneling and putting a tarp on top of it and calling it good to go. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be clean. It doesn't have to be any of that. It just needs to keep the wild birds away. I put a TikTok up earlier today. I literally have all kinds of stuff. I have insulation paper on one of my coops, and I have some black tarp looking stuff that I found downstairs in my basement. And it is literally just zip tied on my coop to keep those wild birds away. Structurally, that's really all you need. Just something to keep those wild birds from getting in your coops or pooping into them.
Yeah, because, and again, guys, because remember, the wild birds, they're looking, the reason why they're coming to your flock and trying to get down in there is not to chill with them and say hi. They want your water and they want the free food. Okay. So that's why covering it will stop them from being able to get in there, right? And then your native birds, or the birds at springtime, they're wanting to nest, right? And so what do we typically have in our coops? Straw, right? So the little birds are going to come in to get the straw to build a nest, right? Because it's easy. They don't have to go harvest grass and find tall grass to be able to do that. There's a nice pile of straw there that they can come and pick and grab and take it off.
And I've had this question, a couple of comments about this. Guys, it does not matter the size of the bird. It doesn't matter what the bird is, anything avian. So if you have exotic birds in your house, or you have parakeets, you see these little songbirds, even hummingbirds can get it. It does not matter the size. It does not matter the type of bird. Now, for like your operational biosecurity, this is where we're changing our clothes. This is where we're doing our shoe dips. This is where we are delegating only one person to be in those coops to take care of our birds. This is where we are implementing coop shoes or coop clothes. These are the type of things that keep you as the keeper from tracking it into your flock. Because this stuff, it can get on the bottom of your shoes. And we really didn't know this until 2015, because what happened was the USDA was testing one farm, didn't think it was getting on their tires. They'd go over and test another farm. The farm would come back negative, and then a week or two later that they had birds dropping, and they had to depopulate that entire farm. The USDA was tracking it in on their tires. They didn't implement tire sprays back then, and they didn't know. They honestly didn't know. So now that is one thing that the USDA will do, and you'll see your NPIP testers doing it. They'll spray their tires down. They'll wear booties. They take biosecurity. You can kind of see them use biosecurity in a travel sense, because they have a white bodysuit that they put on. They have boots that they spray down with a disinfectant, and they spray their tires off before they come onto your farm and after they come off of your farm.
I think the most important thing, like Marissa and Phil stated, that you want to create a barrier between your flock and the outside, wild birds. So no bird feeders, no encouraging them to congregate at your coop, making sure you're not taking your chickens, you're not allowing your chickens to free range. It is flock down, covering any of those tiny holes. Like if you have hardware cloth, then you're good to go. If you don't have a covered top, you need to cover your top. And if you have dog paneling, which looks like fencing, chain link fencing, I used bird netting and I wrapped it in the bird netting. I also put a big tarp on top of Mr. Jangles. They have a covered run, but to increase space, because if your chickens are used to free ranging, pinning them up can, cause some stress to your birds. So I increased their run space, and you can see it from the road. I don't really care. It's to protect my birds. So I think if we had some simple ideas, like Marissa has stated, and Phil, to make sure no rats can get in there, they're not getting to your food. Making sure that only one person is coming in and out of your coop. Wash your clothes, change your clothes, whatever you want to do. I mean, if you want to put on a suit to go in, and some people have more than one coop. I have more than one coop. So for me, I can't just go and you're also walking in the yard. So coop shoes don't necessarily, it's going to cut it, because you're walking through the yard. Unless you wear a pair of shoes, stop before you're going into your coop, change your shoes, and then go into your coop. I have more than one coop. I have 8 coops. So I bought booties. I know it's not very environmentally friendly right now. I'm probably going to do a shoe dip. And then that way you can do it before you go into each coop. Because basically you're just tracking the yard, where the birds are pooping into your coop. So you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and so there's some questions in here, like booties. So think about an OR operating room. They have the little plastic booties with the elastic on them, and you put it over your shoe and it completely covers it.
That's what I bought. That's what I have.
You've got those that are disposable that you can use to go into your coop. Right? I got a size 14 foot, so it's kind of difficult to find something that big and for them to stay on when I do find something that big. So The shoe dip. So what are we talking about when we talk about a shoe dip? You need to get yourself like a little Rubbermaid container that your feet can fit in, right? And so then in that bottom of that, somebody was asking about what chemicals. So there's a lot of different chemicals that you can use that they have depending on, I've got a son that's allergic to bleach, so I can't use bleach in my house. So we don't use bleach. But you can use bleach and water, mixing that. I believe it was Marissa just walked off. She'd be able to tell you. I believe that is 50-50. And
Yes.
you mix that and then step in it, shake it around, wash it, right? Make sure you get everything completely cleaned off. Then you can use hydrogen peroxide. So that's what I am using is hydrogen peroxide. There you go. Marissa's got the pan. So I use hydrogen peroxide, the 11% stuff, the stuff that they use to clean ambulances that kills everything. So, I mean, nothing survives 11% hydrogen peroxide. So you can get that at your like Walgreens or CVS or local pharmacy like that. So that is what I'm using. I rinse the bottom of my shoes off with the hydrogen peroxide. They do make cleansers and stuff that you can get at feed stores and stuff like that also will handle it. So, I mean, you just need to do a little bit of research and find if you got bleach and water, that'll work. If you got the hype.
I want this mute.
Why are you slacking on the dishes, Peter?
Somebody's unmuted.
Let me do the dishes every day.
You got it.
Why are you slacking on the dishes?
So then just make sure, like I said, just make sure that you are keeping an eye on, I use straight peroxide. I'm not mixing with water. So it's the cleanser.
I use HibaCleanse. Haven't been able to find it here recently, so I'm using a 50-50 water bleach mixture. But you have to refresh that every day. Okay, it's only good for like 24 hours.
I think the bleach is the most cost effective. HibaCleanse is very expensive. It is in my area, so you just get a small bottle. I think the bleach, just want to make sure you don't leave it out where your dogs can drink out of it, or protect your other pets, obviously, from any of that.
Yeah. Somebody was asking in California right now, y'all guys are safe because it's burning up the Atlantic coast and the Atlantic Flyway, and it's starting to get into the Mississippi Flyway. Just keep an eye on it because I think here, like where I'm at in the Central Flyway and then in the Pacific Flyway, our problem is going to be more in the fall when these birds come back from Canada because they're going to be spreading it around up there, all the wild birds. And when they come back down south.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ideas in the chat about what to use for foot dip. All of these are options. We would rather you use something that is cost effective that you can actually do and not, get caught up in all the different names and brands and stuff. So,
yeah.
And we've all stated about covering your coop and stuff, do the best you can. That's what we want you to do. We don't care that it's not as good as someone else's or whatever. We absolutely don't care. We want your chickens to be safe. So whatever you've got to do, whatever you've got to find, that's what we want, and I will say, if you need help with something, if you need a tarp, if there's something that you can't get that you do need, send me a message, and I'll see what I can do. But only if it's really something you can't, you don't have any alternative, but we don't want anyone to go without something to help cover.
And guys, this is a group effort. This is not us, just going on our own. Like we need everybody doing this. If you're in the Atlantic Flyway, your bird should already be locked up. Your bird should already be covered. You're behind the ball. If you're not, you shouldn't be free ranging. I would not be free ranging. And I know that's difficult because my birds, I let them out a lot into the yard when, during the fall time or like winter time when there's not a whole lot of, stuff growing in my garden because I let them clean out the garden beds and stuff like that. And so they ain't happy with me, but you know what? They can be little turds if they want, but they're not going to get out. Just give them little extra treats and, fresh veggies and they're okay. One other thing I did want to talk about based on what the USDA has, they've got on their Defend the Flock, they've got biosecurity basics, guys. And some of the things that the USDA specifically says is keep visitors to a minimum. So, you know, I've got neighborhood kids that love to come in my backyard because they get to play with my chickens and the baby chickens and, you know, pick up eggs and collect eggs, because it's not something that, you know, city folk normally get to do, you know, around here. So the kids love my chickens, especially during the summer. Like, they want to go walk them in the neighborhood, right? We want to keep the visitors to a minimum. So again, pick one person in the family that is going to be that person that goes in there and takes care of it, right? Wash your hands before and after coming in contact with live poultry. That is always a good thing to do, right? Because again, chickens poop on everything and they can be, they're nasty, right? They dirty. That's just what chickens are, right? So they also say provide disposable boot covers, which we talked about it, or disinfectant foot baths. Anyone having contact with your flock must use these, right? Change your clothes before entering poultry areas and exiting poultry areas. Clean and this one right here. Clean and disinfect tools or equipment before moving them to a new poultry facility. So if you've got multiple flocks like the Holly Gang, you're not going to be like, oh, I need a waterer over here, so I'm just going to go into this coop and just carry it right over and go take it into this coop, right? We need to disinfect that, okay, before we do that. And so how do we disinfect that? Again, there's the cleansers that we talked about, hydrogen peroxide, bleach, whatever you need to do, spraying them down, the HydroCleanse, some of that other stuff that you can do on that. And then also look for signs of illness, right? Are they not drinking? Are they quiet, right? Do we need to disinfect our eggs? I always wash my eggs before I cook with them, even if they're not dirty. So, I mean, that's just habit. Even though I don't wash my eggs, they stay out on the counter. Before I use them, I always wash them. Somebody was asking that here.
Yep.
So
make sure you're washing.
I would say yes, because just north of you, there was in Indiana, there was the turkey farm, right? So it is in that Mississippi Flyway. So here's what
I'm going to say about the states. Like, when this first broke out, I started building pens because, as we learned in Kentucky, you can have a commercial flock or a backyard flock test positive before the Wildlife Resource Agency even knows it's there, because these wild birds are so good at carrying it and spreading it around. Over at Grandma's. So if you are in a neighboring state, you need to take those precautions and go ahead and lock your flocks down. You don't have to go into a complete and total lockdown, but you do need to start taking those precautions to keep the wild birds away from your birds as well.
I had a question on my TikTok. What flyway is St. Louis? St. Louis is in the Mississippi Flyway. Okay, so when we say the Mississippi Flyway, think about the Mississippi Basin. That includes Minnesota, right? The Mississippi River and everything that flows into the Mississippi, it goes all the way up into Minnesota. So that includes Iowa as part of that. You would think that Iowa would be in the central. It's not. It is in the Mississippi Flyway. So Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, I believe Louisiana is as well, and Arkansas are all in the Mississippi Flyway.
I have a question. I know this has been asked by several of our followers. What about getting chicks? It's spring. It's almost chick season. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think you're going to be good on getting chicks, but you do still need to make sure your coop is bird proof at this moment in time. You also need to make sure that you are purchasing chicks from reputable breeders, someone who is NPIP certified, someone who is practicing biosecurities. Now, something I did see, and it came from a hatchery of all places, that chicks were immune to avian influenza. They are not in the least bit immune to avian influenza.
Neither are hatching eggs.
Yeah, neither are hatching eggs. I don't like that they said that. I mean, I understand. I mean, we want to be honest. So if I've added eggs into my incubator, but they're not from any other place. They're from here. And I want to get ducklings from Marissa. So that was the question. But a lot of people, can we purchase chicks, and can we buy hatching eggs to hatch with a broody hen?
With a broody hen, I would say no. Do not put hatching eggs with a broody hen. If you want to do it in an incubator, yes. But then also you need to make sure that you are not then taking said chicks and going and put them in your coop. You need to quarantine those chicks for at least a month.
Well, right? They're going to be
at least a month.
Yeah, I understand the not using the broody hen. That was a no from me, because you're just placing them within the environment. But chicks are going to quarantine anyways, for 6 to 8 weeks inside the house. Not saying it would be over by then, but you at least have 6 to 8 weeks to either add on to your coop or add them somewhere.
I know as pet owners, sometimes as chicken pet owners, right, we have a broody hen and we want to give them some eggs to hatch out just to, have them have that experience or whatever else. Do not bring them in, because those eggs can be carriers, right? Those chicks could hatch out and die immediately from that and have it already in there. And then now you just introduce that to your flock, right? So I would not be buying full-blown birds, and I've done that in the past. I had a dog get into one of my coops and kill a bunch of chickens. And so I needed egg layers, right? Because I've got customers that buy eggs from me, right? And so I went and purchased some full-size birds from a farm, right? And so right now I would not be purchasing full-grown animals like that if you do not have some place to quarantine them separate from your coop. I believe it's 250 feet away. Is that what the USDA
30 days and 30 feet and 30 days is what the USDA website said.
I thought I read something about 250 feet that they were saying, which as a backyard, someone living in the city like me, we don't have 250.
Yeah, there's no way someone would have 250 feet.
Newcastle.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Marissa.
I think that's Newcastle.
Was it Newcastle? Okay.
30 feet, 30 days.
That's Newcastle.
And so I've actually got 24 meat birds coming in the next couple of weeks, like chicks. And so for me, I have one coop on the far side of my yard that's actually enclosed. Everything else it's already pinned in, and it has its own coop. And then I have my laying hen somewhere else. So those two flocks will never come in contact with one another. But I will have to do, like you said, the biosecurity measures of changing my boots or dipping my boots when I go between the two flocks. And I will have aluminum cans with different bags of feed, so that way I'm not feeding them from the same bag of feed either. I will make it where I'm not tracking stuff back and forth.
Yeah. I mean, I know all of these things can be done. Of course, we do them. We may not be a commercial. I think a lot of people with backyard chickens, they don't think, well, we're not commercial. We don't need to do all this, but you do need to do these things. But it's also not as exhausting as it sounds. Once you kind of get your routine in and things in place, then it just becomes natural. And that really puts a protection around your flock. And somebody has asked a question, and this is actually one of my questions. When they say, when this first started, they said lock your flock up for 30 days. I don't know if they were expecting to contain it before those 30 days, but my thinking is that after there's not been an incident for 30 days, is that what they're saying the 30 days was? Or is, sorry.
So the 30 days is basically a time for them to try and get it under control. If they don't succeed getting it under control in the 30 days, it's probably going to extend past that. It's going to be, how we saw, and I hate to make this, this whatchamacallit, but like we saw with COVID, masks and lockdown for 2 weeks, and it carried on, and it's still carrying on. But if people do what they're supposed to do and they lock those birds inside, that 30-day timeline should give them enough time to get this under control. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, and that's what makes us so angry in your chicken keeper groups. Well, I have free rangers. I'm not pinning my birds up. okay, that's fine, but you're going to ruin it for the rest of us actually trying to do what we need to do to keep our flock safe. Because again, also too, that 30-day period, a lot of those birds that have it, they're going to die out. And if they don't have nothing to give it to, that's going to help control the infection area. Well, I say infection, but it's a virus, the virus area.
Yeah, and Nani Moose in my TikTok brings up a good point. I was going to jump in and say it too. A lot of these practices are best practices that we should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
Like washing our hands, washing the tools, disinfecting stuff, right? Having coop shoes is probably a good idea anyway to have that, right? So we're not tracking stuff in. Right. Having covered runs, permanent covered runs that we can work towards building, right, and get for our flocks. That's a good thing. We can still, when something like this isn't there, we can still let them free range, but then have some place to where we can lock them down when necessary, right? So locking your food up, getting, good feeding and watering things that are covered that only allow a little bit of food, not broadcasting feed everywhere for stuff to keep coming in and getting that. And so that's another thing that we didn't mention, but how you feed your birds. Don't be scattering, we all love to give the chicken scratch to help them do stuff, but don't be scattering scratch right now everywhere, because that's just going to invite the wild birds, right? Because that's open food, right? I'm mixing my scratch in with my laying pellets, just so that they still have that ability. But we just need to be mindful, because that brings in the rats and other stuff like that, right, when we have food out in the open.
Okay, is there anything we haven't covered? And then I'll kind of, maybe people can rate, we'll select a few, and then people, or whoever, we'll get to people's questions.
Okay.
I know you've already been here an hour.
This is not the same thing. This is not the same thing. What we saw last year was H5N1. It got one turkey flock, and that was it. That was the end of it. This is H5N1. It is one of the two most destructive strains of HPAI. This is not the LPAI that goes around every year. I just want you to be knowledgeable that this is we have not seen this here since 2015.
Yeah, this is the bad stuff, right? The bad one. And so one thing that we didn't cover that I want to speak specifically to certain individuals. Can I cure this? Can I cure this? Can I use colloidal silver to cure this in the water? Can I use medicines? Is there a vaccine for this? Can I use essential oils in my water and be able to, cure my animals or keep my animals from getting this? Right. And so the short answer is 2 letters, and it's no, right? This is something that our birds are not genetically able to handle. It's a high pathogen avian influenza. And so is it a good idea to clean your stuff with colloidal silver? Yes, it is, right? Those are good practices that we should be doing. My birds, I use, oregano and thyme essential oils in their water because it's good for their guts, right? It's antiviral, antibacterial. So that's stuff that I do for that. There's not a vaccine for this that we can give our birds, right? So, and there's not a cure because it kills so fast. By the time you notice, and again, the 2 main things that we're seeing with this one is not drinking water, right? Being quiet, and then they're dead, right?
Yeah.
And it's done. So we need to understand that this goes quick, and it's within a matter of hours. It's not over the next couple, days that this happens. It's done quickly. I mean, if you watch, somebody asked a question about feeding them vegetables and things like that. Yeah, if you're washing it with good soap and cleaning the vegetables and stuff, you're not going to end up tracking that stuff in there, right? So you can still kill viruses like you normally kill viruses. If you bring it up to 165 degrees, whatever you're feeding them, right, that'll kill the virus.
And that is a big question from like our egg eaters and our slaughterers. Guys, you can now USDA, when they find this, they incinerate, they gas, and then they incinerate. But if this happens to your flock or you start seeing this, grocery store chicken, we're not going to see this in because the birds are going to be cold before they even get to the slaughtering facility, or they're going to drop dead before they get to the slaughtering facility. So the store chicken, the store meat, that stuff's still going to be okay to eat. It can get bajiggity with eggs. I'm not saying the bacteria can't get on the eggs and live, because it can. But as long as you are cooking, you're taking your proper cooking precautions, washing your hands, washing your eggs before you eat them, and cooking your chicken and your eggs up to a temperature of, like Phil said, 165 degrees, you're fine. You have killed the virus out.
So we didn't cover about, there's a lot of the aluminum foil people, right? Talking they come in and talk about, this is the next pandemic or whatever else is going on. Guys, this strain was first found in 1997, right? And I did some more checking. There has been maybe 1,200 cases since 1997 where this has jumped from bird to human, right? Has a high rate of people not making it. It's about 40%. But we're only talking 1,200 people. How many trillions of interactions have people had with poultry in that time frame? And it's not jumping from human to human. It was people that were around these flocks that had this in a large case. I think the last case that I saw that was in Europe of a guy that had it was an old man, and he had like 27 ducks living with him. How in the world would you have 27 ducks in your house? Even one. Oh, the ducks are just nasty, right? So there's not a big concern about this becoming a pandemic or anything else like that. We are worried about our chickens and protecting our flocks, protecting our genetics of our flocks in the United States, right? We need to make sure that, again, that we're just following these procedures so that we can continue to have chicken, and be able to get the breeds that we want, right, in the United States.
I'll touch on that too, because I've had a lot of comments. Well, they're after our food supply. Okay. This affects commercial beforehand. Why does it affect commercial beforehand? Because depending on the type of barn that they have, wild birds can still get in. Like, you go to Walmart, and I guarantee you, or Lowe's even, there's a wild bird flying around in there. And all it takes is just one bird to get in this poultry barn and spread it to this flock. Guys, they keep 300,000 to 500,000 birds in a barn at one time. So financially and stuff, this is going to hit them before it hits us, because we don't have that many birds. We do have backyard flocks, but think of how spaced out. We don't bring wild birds in. If you're practicing biosecurity, you're feeding correctly, wild birds shouldn't really visit you unless you are inviting them to the property. But now with these chicken barns, wild birds know, especially crows, they know to go there for their food and their water, because it's out everywhere. They have to store the feed. A lot of times what they do with the feed is they store it in these cement buildings that are pretty open to the elements. Like, they're covered. They have like big concrete blocks, and the feed is just shoved in one of those little cubbies with the concrete blocks. It's still okay to eat, but those wild birds get into it. And that's another way it makes it into the barns. But now, that's going to be more common down here in the South than it is in California. California, when Newcastle come through, they're operating their own HVAC systems, their own HEPA filters. When poultry people step in, they have like a clean room, and they have to change out all of their clothes. They have to take a shower, and then they step into another room, put another suit on just to tend to the birds. Like, that's how serious some of those barns are in California.
Okay, I think we should open it up with some questions because y'all have already been here an hour, and we appreciate all of y'all. And then if you feel you need something else to share, Phil or Marissa, we can do that too. Is that all right? Okay. I think Tara?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm launching a marketplace app in about a week, and I've worked with lawyers for disclaimers and things because you can purchase poultry on the app. But I was wondering if there's a comprehensive website that I can direct users to. I'm going to have a pop-up before that category to make sure people have resources to look and see maybe what current regulations are in their area.
Are you talking about for keeping birds, like how many you can keep, or
No, to purchase, to buy, to sell? Is there like a comprehensive website that maybe has updated information on this?
So if you're in rural area,
Mm-hmm.
there's not really a cap on it. The only time you're going to run into somebody putting a cap on how many birds you have, or is if you're urban or if you're in an HOA.
Okay.
or your cities like mine. When in the city that I live in here in DFW, when I first started keeping our city council, there was city ordinance that you could only have 6 hens and no roosters. And we fought for a couple of years. We voted some council members out until we finally got the people in there. And now we can have 30 hens, and we can have 1 rooster per 6 hens. And so,
wow.
And I'm not as concerned about those local regulations, but as far as like minimizing risk, spreading a virus with purchasing and like integrating chickens to a current flock, I just wondered if there was like
I would say
resource.
like the USDA APHIS page that has the defend the flock. They have some good information on there about that.
Okay.
Because they have they've got a resource, and I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, they do have a lot of resources there. Not just about biosecurity, but really a lot of things.
I'll put that link. The link is right there in the.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I mean the burden is on the user, and of course like the owner in any exchange. But I just wanted to provide a website link if I could.
No, we love a good educator. That's awesome.
All right, thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
let's see. Sonia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to verify. Y'all said that it's going with the migration patterns, which will be going north in the spring.
Correct.
So are we looking for everybody south of this kind of line that it's going across the U.S.? Are we looking more fall for anything to see anything in our area?
Well, it depends. Like what state are you in?
I'm in Texas. I'm in East Texas.
Okay,
So I'm
you're in
about
East
2
Texas.
hours from you.
Okay. Yeah. So for like with us, I'm more concerned with this fall for us because the way the birds are going to migrate, like they're going to be going up into, Iowa, Kansas, those places like that as they migrate north and go into Canada. When they get up there and they start their mating and doing everything that they do and congregating, when they start coming back down to us in the fall, especially like the red-breasted robins, we get those coming down here. The grackles, like the grackles scare me because the city I live in is one of the main hubs for overwintering for grackles. Like we have millions and millions and millions of them. They tear up power lines because they get so many of them in there that just they break them. I mean, it's so bad here. And since they're federally protected, we can't get rid of them.
Okay. I had another question about cats. We talked a little bit about dogs. I've got a cat that likes to eat birds during the spring since they're landing and forget that he's there. So
for the research that I've done and looked at it, I'm not saying that it won't, but from my understanding is there's something about cats that they have not typically gotten this strain. There's been dogs that have, but cats have not. But again, cats, if you've got birds, if the cat kills a wild bird that has it and then gets it on its fur and then it's going into your coop or whatever else, or, rubbing around on your boots or your shoes, right, as cats do, and then you walk and track it in, that is a possibility because this stuff will live on the surface of clothing.
Okay. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Okay, anyone else?
It's already hit New York, Long Island. There was a backyard flock that tested positive yesterday. So it's already there. Is it going to get worse if people don't do what they need to do? If they don't start, locking down their flocks and the wild birds come up there and start spreading it, then yes, it can get worse. And that's what we're all afraid of.
Okay, we're gonna go with Ray. You need to put your hand up if y'all don't mind, because I can't. That just to be fair and to understand you. Okay, Ray, go ahead, sis.
So basically, what everybody needs to sit there and think about is this is like the flu. Like you just need to continue with like basic hand washing. If you're around a lot of people, it's just like the flu. So if you take a look at the migratory pathways, and we've shared that several times, and we can send you more information on that, but just think about like all the wild birds that are around you. Be aware of your surroundings. And if you're taking a look and you're like, oh, well, I'm not too far from this place, maybe I need to start being aware of this. I mean, like I'm in Maryland. We have the Chesapeake Bay. I'm out in the mountains of Maryland. I'm not actually like, that's like 2 or 3 hours away from me, but I still have to worry about it because of the migratory patterns. And also I've noticed just from being outside with my birds that the songbirds are starting to come back. So you just need to really be aware of what is going on in your area. Think of it like the flu. Like little kids, they sneeze. Okay, that's how we get the flu from little kids. Like if you sit there and think about it in a different way, you're going to be able to prevent it just a little bit more. It has hit basically all up the East Coast. Like that's what you just need to think. Okay, well, if I'm near water, this is what I need to think about, because it's spreading mostly through the wild, like all the fowl that's going up there, ducks, geese. If you're not paying attention to that, I mean, like use some of these resources that we keep posting in the chat. Like we're posting a ton of them. We'll make sure that these are available to you. I mean, Mel's asked me to like write down everything that we're doing, and we'll get a link tree up that you can just go and reference all of this for.
Yeah, I was looking at trying to find the APHIS page, because they, like I said, they changed it yesterday. It was there and I was able to see it, but I can't find it where they have the wild birds. There was 6 pages of 25 incidents of wild birds just on the Atlantic coast. So they were from Florida all the way up. So just if you're in the Atlantic Flyway, you're on fire in your area, you need to be locked down. End of story. I mean, that it's there and it's dug in.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks.
You got anything else, Ray, before I ask someone
Nope,
else?
go ahead, go to somebody else.
Okay. Okay, I'm just going to go in order. Amanda, are you there, honey?
Yeah. Okay. So my biggest question is like, I'm definitely like city, but I have a couple guys that are like 3 or 4 streets over and they free range. My girls are locked down. They're still outside. They're fitting to come in. But what if one of their flocks get it? Do they want to come and test my girls, or are they going to take them?
It depends on your city. I mean, not your city, your state, and what they're going to do. And like I explained, I don't know if you were on earlier, it's really going to depend on when they come in and they look at it. Okay, are these birds free ranging? Are they going from backyard to backyard, jumping around? Because in the past, I've had neighbors who have young roosters that are looking for their own flock and they want to come play with my chicken, and I've had to run roosters off. So it's going to depend on that situation, what they decide. Some states, like I said, if you're in California, I guarantee you, if a flock tests positive, they're going to cull 6 miles, because California's already been through the ringer and they are already in a budget shortfall. They don't want to spend the money to resolve it, because they spent almost $1 trillion to fix it.
So like step by step, what's going to happen is, so let's use Indiana as an example. Indiana had that hot flock. They tested positive. They depopulated the turkeys. Everything within 6 miles of them. Oh, I'm sorry. Everything within 6 miles of that turkey farm. What they're going to do is they're going to check records. They're going to look and see who is MPIP in that area. They may even take a helicopter over just to see who has chickens. You're going to come home one day, you're going to have a notice on your door, or you're going to get something in the mail that says you are in a surveillance/cull zone. There is going to be more information on that notice that they give you. When you get that notice, it can say surveillance, or it can say depopulation, or cull, CULL. Surveillance basically means they are going to come by and they're going to test your birds. If it says cull or depopulation, you are going to get another notice a few days later that says a depopulation or a kill notice. That kill notice will probably be taped on your front door. Now, some states will do this and allow you to test out, and this is why I am so strict on knowing your rights, knowing your state regulations, and knowing if you can test out or not. Because if you can test out, you can tell them to leave your property and request to be tested out, and a lot of people do not know this information.
Okay.
Now, some states like California, you're going to get a surveillance notice and you're going to get a kill notice. And then the next couple of weeks, they're going to come in and gas and incinerate your birds. So know your state regulations. In New York, in New York, you are a test out state. So if you can prove that you are practicing proper biosecurity, the date you went into lockdown, keep that date. If you have any bird die from death, keep that date. Okay? If you want to call MPIP and get tested, go ahead and get them out and get them tested. And if you are in a hot zone, you can show that paperwork, say, hey, on this exact day, I was AI tested and I came back negative. But honestly, what they're looking for when they do those surveillance, they're looking for dead birds. Because I'm telling, like, we are all telling you guys, this stuff hits you, you will have dead birds within 24 hours. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And being responsible owners, if you start having, and it's not going to be 1 or 2 birds, if you have, let's say you have, and this is the example I like to use, you have 4 birds. 3 of those birds and possibly your 4th is going to die within 24 to 48 hours. If that is your flock, you need to cull your entire flock or you are just prolonging their suffering with this virus.
Okay.
Like Ray said, have photos. Make sure you keep photos.
Yeah, because I know the guys up the street, they're still free ranging, and my girls have been in complete lockdown since your very first video. And I'm doing my best to keep them in and safe, but I mean, other people are not.
Yeah,
and that's my biggest thing.
Amanda, it may be that, again, because there's not a lot of information out there. A lot of people don't know about this. And so, you may need to just send them a letter, to say, hey, are you aware of the H5N1 is in our area? This is the website. You may want to, if you know the people, if you have a Facebook group or some kind of group of chicken owners in the area, just start spreading the word about it. I mean, that's what we need to do, because there's a lot of people that don't have a clue because they're not on TikTok. The news media is not reporting this. USDA is finally starting to do what they need to on their website to get information out, right? So we're still early in this and what's going on. We're only a month and a half into this, so.
Yeah, Amanda, you could be an outlet for your neighborhood or your local Facebook groups or whatever that has chickens. So you could be that outlet, like Phil said, and, spread the word. We don't know necessarily if they, maybe this group of neighbors doesn't understand what's going on. I think to give them a chance, to say, hey, look what's going on, and if then they decide that I'm not going to do that, then that's a whole different story. But there is going to be people who want to hear what you have to say. So I say go for it and, be an advocate in your area.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? I can't see anything. I saw a hand, but now I don't.
Raja.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry. I didn't see you in the corner. Raja. Okay, you go ahead. So sorry.
So
I thought Greg had his hand up.
So quick question, not for the virus we are talking about, but in general, if like the main thing is, if we have a water bodies, is that the main security, the thing like geese and stuff are the carriers, right?
Any wild bird, geese, ducks, widgeons, any bird. I mean, parakeets can have, this affects anything that is avian can carry it.
Okay. What are the medicines for normal diseases that we might, because I recently started my flock. So I'm pre-ranging them like right after 5:30 in the evening, just a little while. And again, bringing them back inside. But I don't see any wild birds coming, except one hawk took away 2 of the baby chickens.
Yeah.
That's pretty much.
There's not really any medication that you can give them for this, because again, it's a flu, and they don't have the genetics or, the antibodies to be able to fight this one off. So they get it, they're going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
I think just providing, doing the best you can to provide the best nutrition, give them plenty of fresh water, the basic things that you would do anyways, would be your best bet. But like Phil said, once they get it, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. But, practice good chicken keeping care anyways.
Limiting exposure is what we need to be doing. Limiting exposure from people, limiting exposure from wild animals. I mean, that's what we need to be doing.
Got it. So what is the closest location that from around Speedway? Where is the disease that spread?
Where are you located?
Indiana Speedway.
Indiana.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be Du Bois.
Yeah. I was trying to think in my head.
Indianapolis Speedway in the city.
Yep. Which is 3 hours south of you.
Oh, okay. Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so Indiana has already been, confirmed they've got stuff there. So the H5N1 is already in your area. So
Yeah, so you want to keep them up.
Yeah.
Definitely. Prevent any wild birds from coming in and out of your coop. Don't let them free range, those types of things.
Got it.
Do you have anything else before I move on?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, Watusi, you got something for us, sis?
Oh, my
Yes, I do.
howdy.
So we can talk about biosecurity all day long about your booties, your shoe dip, all that stuff. So I clean my coops out once a week because I have to since they're in the barn. Do we need to buy multiple tools to use in each coop? Or I was thinking about ordering the Vicron. I had talked to you, Melissa, about it. What can we do that way? Like I'm cleaning the coop completely out.
So
I don't
best
wanna
case
spread
scenario, Watusi, would be, yes, if you could afford it, have tools for each individual coop. But if you can't, you need to disinfect them before you take them into the next coop.
Okay. Now, the Vicron S, is that something that we could use to disinfect inside our coops? I mean, it's kind of pricey, but it's to kill high pathogenic avian flu.
Yeah, you can definitely use that. It's just very, very expensive.
Yeah.
It's out of my price range.
Said I normally clean my coop with hydrogen peroxide, and I run the girls out of there. I shut the coop door so they can't get in there with my mask on, and then I get in there with my putty knife and I scrape and clean and disinfect everything.
That's all I have for you guys. I was just wondering because I know I have 8 to 10 different coops I have to clean.
Yeah, me too. I'm in the same boat.
My chicken math hasn't gotten there yet, thankfully.
Just wait. It will.
I have a chicken village, so.
Quail is enough in a chicken run and coop.
Oh, I got quail too. I love my quail. Okay, Ben, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. We have everybody inside. We're in Virginia, so we've been doing this since the beginning. But it's not the space I have them in. It's going to get warm and it's going to get hot. If I was to try to get them outside and we have chicken wire, we're covered. But if I was going to make a separate chicken tractor or something, you guys recommend like hydrogen peroxide to disinfect the ground? I just like burn the ground.
Right now I would not be using like a chicken tractor like you normally would to move it because I mean all of that ground, if it's not been covered, it has a potential of having wild bird poop and animals tracking stuff through it. Because I know that's difficult on me because I've got a little chicken tractor that I put on top of each one of my garden beds and I let the girls go through it and pull weeds out for me. And I just didn't do that this year. So I just got out there with a rake and a hoe and pulled it out myself. It's just a stinky situation for them. One thing you may think about getting like a cheap box fan or something that you can put out there to circulate air
Yeah, totally. And I've got that going on with them. They're actually in an attic space right now in our house. So we've renovated that space for it, but it's going to get warm. And
yeah.
I wanted to get them outside. Our coop and run is covered. It's chicken, but I've got a wood floor and it's pretty tight, but I just, want them to have some sort of fresh.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you could even like real simply go get some T-posts, like 8-foot T-posts, and run a little area in the ground with a T-post, and then you can go get chicken wire cheap and wire that in, and then wire the top of it, just to give them a space that they can go outside.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you think the ground if it is, I disinfect that area and just keep that area. I'm not trying to move it around at all.
Right. Yeah. So it's not moving, just so that you have a space for them. Because they're going to definitely need to get outside and scratch and move. And
yeah, for sure. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome, Ben.
Okay, Mary.
Definitely make sure you're using something that is okay for the environment, not like bleach or something.
Well, then what are we talking about here, Marissa?
Well, like the Vicron.
Yes.
So like when you're disinfecting grass and stuff, you don't want to use something that is very harsh on the environment, because if you are located near waterways, that stuff can seep into the waterways and poison a lot of animals. So you want something environmentally friendly. I know Hibiclens, it dilutes pretty well, and it meets EPA guidelines. But it's more so for humans than actual soil. So you want something like the Vicron that Christy was talking about earlier, or I'll have to look it up. It's like chlorhexidine oxide, I think it's called.
Yes,
it meets EPA as well.
Yes. I was trying to think of it. Okay, Mary, you're up, sis.
That kind of goes, can you hear me? I don't know if I'm on mute.
Yes, we hear you.
So, that kind of goes back to what I was wanting to ask. If you end up being in that kill zone and they come and they have to cull all of your birds, what happens after that? Are you in okay, sorry, you're just out of luck, you can never have chickens again because now it's on your land? Or is there something that now you can kind of go back and treat and do something to where you can rebuild a new flock after the fact? I know this virus is, I guess, new to us here now recently, but are they expecting it to be something that's going to be on your land, in your soil? If your birds have it, then you're out of luck for having them ever again. Has anybody really kind of known what they do when they've had to do that so far?
So it's not like Merrick's, or it's not like Mycoplasma galliceptum, where it's living for years and years and years. You can disinfect the area with one of those EPA disinfectants, or you can actually burn it and it will be gone.
And I'm sure the Department of Ag will let you know if God forbid they do have to come and cull an area. They'll let you know how long it's a no poultry zone. I'm sure they'll tell you, don't reintroduce for 90 days or 30 days or however long it is, because it's going to take them a while if it comes to that, and it's going to take a while to cull a 6-mile radius. So that's going to be, a week or however long it takes them to go around to be able to do that, to handle everything that they need to do. And they're trying to do that to control it from spreading and moving. So if they come and call you today and then tomorrow you go get brand new chicks and you're reintroducing poultry, they still haven't finished cleaning the area out, right? So it could still be brought right back to you. So they'll let you know how long you need to wait.
Good question.
It's like 360 days is what the USDA says.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can imagine having no chickens for almost a year. But
It'd be tough. I don't like
Yeah.
eggs.
Phew, I'd be jonesing. But if you're coming between me and Mr. Dangles, it's going to be a fight anyway, so it don't matter. I'll be underground.
That reminds me of our podcast You got them chickens?
Yeah. You got any of them chickens? Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. Oh. Okay, I'm not sure if anybody has any other questions. I know we've been on here a very, very long time, and we appreciate Marissa and Phil. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody, but I don't see any hands up, so I think we're all good.
Hi.
So we just want to say a big thank you, unless Marissa or Suburban Farmer Phil has anything else to say.
No, if you got any questions or anything, please reach out. We're both on TikTok, on Instagram.
And like Ray of COVID Clucker stated, we're going to put together a bunch of little information of, what to look for. Obviously, we are not professionals. We're not from the USDA. We are your average backyard chicken keeper, but we do have deep concerns for this. So yes, we have done lots of research, and we are prepared to help anyone who wants to help take a action against, protecting their flock. So we are always here to help you with that. And if we don't know the answer, we will very most likely find it from you somewhere. But with that being said, we appreciate all of you taking your time today. We definitely appreciate our guests for coming on a Sunday. And yeah, I think that's it, y'all.
So now, guys, it's your responsibility to go share with other people that that have chickens, right? Because the only way we're going to spread this information is by word of mouth, telling people, if somebody's got a flock, hey, are you aware of H5N1? You know what's going on, that it's been found here, it's spreading. You just make sure that you're talking about this and bringing this up to other chicken keepers, because we need to make sure that everybody is aware, because this is a group effort, guys. This is not, this is my flock and I'm doing it for me and the rest of y'all, whatever, right? Because your flock can affect my flock.
Yes, we always say that.
Don't
always.
Don't panic. Okay, and don't get your info from the chicken Facebook groups right now.
Yes.
Okay, I'm very anti-chicken group.
So if y'all don't know, I'm a teacher and I teach computer science and programming, and we do a lot about information technology and stuff like that, and valid sources and copyright information and stuff. So make sure that you get your information from a valid source, right? We have been talking directly from the USDA. We've been talking about the Department of Agriculture from states. All of this information that we're spreading is coming from a reliable source, right? So make sure that you're getting your information from a reliable source when you're telling people about this information. Point them back to the USDA website.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to help us out, if you talk to your Department of Ag, because there's 50 states.
Yeah.
I only have so much time. I'm a teacher too. So I know all about reliable resources, but if you talk to your Department of Ag, let one of us know. We're going to compile a list. We're going to get this out there to people because we want to make sure that our pets are safe. We love our birds and we love each other. And this is it's a group project. Let's not be the only ones doing all the work.
Right.
I'm in communication with the Texas Department of Ag, and I'm banging my head because some of their gatekeepers are very much misinformed. And so this, again, the Department of Agriculture as well, they may be behind the game, the ball on this game too, because this is, again, something that hasn't happened for a while, and it's something new, and they're having to figure out as they go, right?
Yeah, like everyone has stated, we can all work together. It takes all of us to protect our flocks, and we are open to, whatever information you have found for your particular state. And like Ray said, we would be more than happy. We're going to put some stuff together for you. We do this because we care. We don't do it because of any other reason. It's not anything to gain here. Obviously, we've taken a lot of our own personal time to do this, but we care about each of you, and we want all of your little fluffy butts to stay safe. And we do have questions about this recording. This is being recorded. I will... Once I get all the audio and stuff together, then I will share this on our platforms. We do ask if you share it, that you do give credit to where it come from. That way, it can go back to us if there's any questions on what was presented today. Also, part of this will be part of a podcast episode that I will have coming up. And then that way it will be permanent within the broadcasting community. But if you have any questions directly, you can message us and we'll go from there. If that's it, we're going to end it.
Right, thanks hungry. Again for having us. We appreciate it. I'm sad that Pumpkin wasn't in there because I was wanting to give her what for.
What? We love all of y'all, and I will see y'all later.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.